Dear students, in this module, we will be considering the McNemar test and we would learn that how to apply the McNemar test onto certain real life situation. Now, the problem we are going to consider is it was being the study taken by Bland in 2000. He has conducted a research on 1,319 school children about the prevalence of symptoms of severe cold at the age of 12 and again at the age of 14 years to test that whether there was a significant increase in the prevalence of severe cold. Now students, the data which is appearing before you, first of all we need to test that whether this particular data is a candidate for the McNemar test. So if you just look into the two variables, एक हमने स्टूडेंट्स लिया है severe cold at the age of 12 and for the same subjects we have repeated the data when the data was being taken, the same data was being taken about the severe cold at the age of 14. That means both of the datas are in form of the pairs. Secondly, if you just look into the categories, both of the variables has two categories. One with the yes and other with a no. Now, if you are given with this data, usually students, you are not given with the marginal totals. So, the first thing you would have to do is that you would have to find out the row totals and the column totals. So, if we just add 212 with 114, we will be getting 356. Similarly, adding 256 and 707, we will be getting 963. And we would have to find out the column totals as well. Now, adding the marginal totals, we got the grand total. They were the total number of school children that were being taken under this study. Now, students, what you would have to do, आपको इसको mark करना है as A, if you just remember, this is B, this is C, and this is D. Now, students, we are not interested in the A and D categories because if you just remember, we have talked about them as being concordant pairs. We are interested in the discordant pairs that which contains the true information. That is, we would have to test the proportion with B and C. So students, first of all, we would be talking about the procedure we would have to follow under the McNemar test. The first thing we would have to do is to formulate the pair of hypotheses. So students, if you just look into H0, it is being taken as PB equal to PC. That means both of the proportions are homogeneous. They are same. Whereas the alternative hypothesis is that there is a difference between the two types of proportions. Similarly, the alpha is being taken as 0.05. Students, if it is mentioned in the statement, then you just take that alpha. But if it is not mentioned, we will follow the rule of thumb और उस alpha को हम लेंगे 5%. Test statistic is chi-square McNemar, B minus C whole square divided by B plus C. Now, taking their ratio, if you just talk about this particular ratio, it follows chi-square with 1 degree of freedom and with alpha, where what is alpha? Alpha is a level of significance. So students, इस particular value को chi-square alpha 1 को आप chi-square के table में देखेंगे. Alpha के एक side पे आपको alpha मिलता है, दूसरी side पे degrees of freedom मिलते हैं. So आपको desired alpha जो हमारे केस में 0.05 है, उसको 1 degree of freedom में जब आप देखेंगे chi-square के table में, then you can obtain this tabulated value. But before that, we would have to calculate the calculated chi-square McNemar. So students, by plugging in the information about B, where that was 144, and plugging the C value, that was 256, taking their difference, then further taking this square, dividing this value with B plus C, we have obtained, after calculating the ratio, we have obtained the value 31.36. So students, this is the value, the calculated value of the chi-square. Now what we are going to do, we would have to compare this chi-square calculated with the tabulated value that we will obtain from the chi-square table. So students, for that we need to construct the critical region. we will have to define the criterion where to reject or accept our null hypothesis. So students, the criterion is we will have to reject H naught if chi-square calculated, that is greater than chi-square alpha with 1 degree of freedom. So students, अगर आप टेबल में जाके chi-square 0.05 के against 1 degree of freedom में देखेंगे value, that value will be 3.84. Now the last thing we would have to do is to make a comparison between the calculated and this tabulated value we have obtained by using the chi-square table. So as the calculated value of chi-square that we have just calculated as 31.36 is very much greater than a tabulated value that is 3.84. So we will have to reject our H naught and conclude that there is a significant difference between the two proportions. So students, in this module, you have learned that by picking up a real life situation, how we can apply the McNemar test onto that problem.